Good morning, and welcome to the June 8th meeting of the Solon Board of Education. We are socially distanced this morning, so we can take our masks off. I'd like to call the meeting to order now. Mr. Buchanan, if you'll call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mrs. Glavin.
Here.
Mr. Patton.
Here.
Ms. Jones.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with Board Policy 0169, this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not considered a public community meeting. Due to the, we are virtual nature of the meeting, we're on camera, it will be streamed live, but if anyone in the audience has any questions or comments that they would like to share with the board, please address those comments to info@boe.org. Again, that email address is info@boe.org. Just as a reminder to our audience, board members do receive and review the agenda and the accompanying explanation during the week prior to the Monday meeting. Moving into the treasurer's report, item A1, approval of minutes. Recommended motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 11 and special meeting of May 28. Motion, please.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Ms. Jones. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, Mr. Buchanan, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin.
Yes. That concludes our treasurer's report. Short one, too. Moving into the superintendent's report, item B1, administrative and supervisory contracts. Recommended motion to approve the contracts of the following people noted in enclosure B1, and they are listed below. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Heckman, seconded by Mr. Patton. Mr. Bolden?
Yes, Ms. Glavin, you'll notice we have several contracts that are up for renewal right now, but I'd like to make particular note of two specific contracts. That would be Mike Acom and Julia Howell. As you know, as everybody knows, our superintendent, Joe Regano, has been on a medical leave of absence, and it appears that though that leave is going to continue for longer. Not sure how long, but we know that that is going to continue. One of the things that we had discussed when that happened was that during the interim time while he was on medical leave, I would assume the role of superintendent pro tempore while still simultaneously doing my job as assistant superintendent for business and personnel. It would be fair to say that it has been a long year.
More than fair.
Right. And now that that year is closed
Something
out,
of a year.
we had decided I would do both of those things because we do like to promote from within, and we wouldn't want to disrupt a building or disrupt a structure mid-year. And fortunately for us, that was probably a wise move given the fact that a pandemic hit
In the middle.
in the middle of the year. So it was good that we were able to keep our teams in place. But now that the year is closed, I really will appreciate it if the board would vote in to have me be able to appoint someone in a role as a director of business and personnel, at least for as long as is necessary until Joe comes back. That person that we have selected to do that after looking at all the possible internal candidates was Mike Acom. Mike is an exceptional leader. He has been with the district since 1997, has done virtually all the jobs that you can do in education. He was a classroom teacher, he was a teacher leader, he was an assistant principal, he was a principal of 2 buildings, and in each case, he's executed all of those jobs very well, and I think he has the organizational and management skills necessary to fulfill that role of handling business and personnel, which includes food service and transportation, and I'm really excited to bring him on board. Because he is moving to this role, it requires us to put a principal in place at Lewis. And looking at all the available candidates that we had, and Debbie and I had multiple conversations with many candidates internally, we have decided on Julia Howell to take that position. Julia is also a veteran of the district. She has been here, I believe you've been here since 2008? Yes, she's been here since 2008. She was a teacher and a teacher leader. She's now taking that next step, much in the same way that myself did, much in the same way that Mike did. She's now taking that next step into a larger leadership role. She is incredibly bright. She is incredibly organized. She is a consensus builder. She is an incredible person to take the role of principal for us in that building. She's got strong ties to the community. She actually is a Solon graduate, go Comets, and she's now taking that next step to be a larger part of our administrative team. And I'm hoping that you all will approve both of these fine individuals to take these next steps in their careers, because I think they'll really add to our administrative team.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board or comments?
No, the resumes are excellent, and I've known some of you for some time and heard about you, and I'm very excited about this. That's my personal opinion.
I think it goes without saying to our community too that Mr. Bolden has been really working extraordinarily hard and really has performed in an amazing capacity, because he's been doing both jobs and they are both very demanding. One in its own right is demanding, but to do both of them, as a board, we think that this is the time that we have to do this to be able to continue with the demands of the district and the management of the district, that this is something that we have to do at this time. So, seeing no other comments, questions, Mr. Buchanan, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavine?
Yes. Thank you.
Good luck to you
Would-
both.
Item
Words?
B2.
Hold on, wait, I just wanted to know if they had anything they wanted to say.
Yes, if you do, by all means.
Since we got them here.
Suppose. Just to the board and to Mr. Bolden, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Steele, thank you for your vote of confidence. And I'm looking forward to getting started right away.
Julia?
I'm going to just reiterate what he said and say thank you to all of you. I'm very excited for the opportunity and ready to take
Ready to go, huh?
ready to take on a new journey. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Item B2, textbook adoption. Recommended motion to adopt the following textbooks, and they are listed below. Moved by Mr. Patton, second by Mrs. Thomas.
Mrs. Glavine, I'd like to thank the curriculum committee, Mr. Patton and Mrs. Jones, who, on a very short timeline, reviewed these and spent a lot of time reviewing them and reported back to me over the weekend. So I want to thank them for doing that.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the textbooks? Seeing none, Mr. Buchanan, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavine?
Yes. Item B3, substitute pay. Recommended motion to approve $115 daily rate maximum per substitute for the 2020-21 school year. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas, second by Ms. Jones.
Yes, Ms. Glavine, this year has been a particular challenge for us securing substitutes for our teachers. Both prior to the pandemic, the strong economy, coupled with the fact that being a substitute in our district is a little more challenging than it could be in other districts, we've had a difficult time getting additional substitutes. That being said, we did a comparative analysis of local rates that are being offered, and we found that we were no longer among the top rates, and so we felt it was necessary for us to increase our rate, both to help alleviate what happened last year, but also to help with what we anticipate will be a strong need next year for additional substitutes, given if we do open up a full capacity, we may have teachers that won't be able to come in for several reasons, and we need to make sure that we have quality candidates to do that, and we feel making this rate commensurate with among the top rates in the area will help us to attract those candidates for substitute teaching.
How long has it been since, do you know, Tim? How long it's been since?
Well, I want to say it's been
5 years.
close, it's been over 5 years,
Yeah,
right?
it might
It's
have
been-
been.
I want to
I
say
think
maybe,
so. I don't-
maybe 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago was it last
some
increase?
time ago.
What was the previous rate?
100.
100, thank you.
How do we pay our substitutes?
They're paid, sorry.
How do we pay them? As far as by check.
No, but, okay, so it's by check. Is that the only way, correct?
That is
How
correct.
often?
How often? We have a monthly substitute check run once a month.
Okay. Because I heard you say that we seem to struggle with getting substitutes. And in the past, I have heard numerous reasons, and that's the reason, because everyone else pays weekly or bi-weekly, or they also can put it right into their checking account. And have we ever looked at that?
We've looked at that, and of course, there's a couple possibilities what we can do here. The first being taking a look at the pay rate. When we took a look at some neighboring districts, as Mr. Bolton had said, the fact is that we were just underpaying compared to some neighboring school districts. So that's step one. We're not saying that this is this completes the entire process. If we still have a struggle bringing in substitutes and retaining subs, then we'll be looking at those other options.
Okay.
The direct deposits we had looked at, but of course, because of it can be done, but because of the fluctuation in substitutes and the inconsistency, them coming in, bringing in updated banking information every time they come in, it can be a little bit more challenging. It would be easier to go ahead and pay a little bit more frequently, which would probably be step two, if this doesn't prove to be a fix, and then take it all the way through. But good questions.
Well, it's a good question. It's something we can always
Absolutely.
look into.
Absolutely.
I'd like to ask one more thing. Are they all paid, say, the 115, or let's say that there's the half day?
They would be paid half the rate. There's two caveats to this particular rate. If you're in the same position for 60 consecutive days, on day 61, you then are paid a different rate. On day 61, by state law, we're required to pay them at our step zero at the bachelor's plus zero rate of our regular teaching contract. So that becomes an increase when that happens. And they also get paid a prorated amount if they work less than a full day. So if they work a half day, they would get half the amount. If they work a full day, they get the full amount. The other caveat, I guess there is one other caveat, if they work longer, like let's say that they're doing a conference night or they're doing something like that, they would then get paid an additional half-day rate for those conference nights or additional things that they would be doing in those cases.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call roll now.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Heck?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. Moving on to item B4, tuition reimbursements. Recommend a motion to approve tuition reimbursements to the following individuals, and they are listed below. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Jones, second by Mr. Patton.
Mrs. Glavin, these were previously approved, and they do meet our district criteria.
Great, thank you. Looks like there's a large group this time.
Well, staff came back, so I'm
That's
sure
right,
they
we're
got the
heading
paperwork
back.
taken care of.
Heading back.
Yeah.
Great. Good, thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Buchanan, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. That concludes our business items. Moving into information items and other reports to the board. Item C1, Solon Schools Family Survey. Mr. Bolden?
Yes, we have closed out the most unique year in the history of the Solon Schools, I think.
Go ahead, yes.
And part of that process, as we look to the future and we review what has happened, we conducted a survey where we sent out a survey. Tammy and I developed a survey to poll our families to see how was your distance learning experience, as well as what are your expectations and your wishes for next year. Obviously, no one can know right now what August is going to look like in terms of the pandemic and in terms of what we're going to be able to do. Our governor still has been sparse with his guidance for us, I guess is a fair way to say it. But what we've decided to do is communicate to our parents so that we can get a feel for what they're doing as we take the month of June to continue to develop our plans, to flesh them out. We're also getting feedback from our staff, as well as through this form, our community. We had well over 2,000 respondents to the survey, and each survey represents all of your family members. So when we parse that out, we think we got very close to our entire student body giving us feedback. Probably a little less, it's probably closer to the 4,000 range as opposed to the 4,600. But we think we got a very large response back to the survey. We are going to be spending the next week taking that data, parsing it out, and then we're going to be using that to help drive our plans for next year. Speaking of our plans for next year, I would say that we're still going through 3 different plans. We don't believe at this point that it would be prudent to say we're going to be all in, or we're going to be hybrid, or we're going to be all out, because we just don't know right now. So we are still fully planning a full in model, a model where we have a combination of distance learning as well as in-person learning, as well as a fully remote model. In all 3 of those models, we are also looking into how we can, for those parents who in each of those models can't have their kids in school for whatever reason, will still be able to access our curriculum. It's a very complicated endeavor to undertake, but we believe that we're going to be able to come up with 3 plans that will be effective, and we hope to be able to share those with you at our next board meeting on June 30th.
I was just gonna ask if we have some time on that, because I know parents are,
Right.
are very concerned about how they're going to plan for next year. Many families have childcare needs and things that they have to address. So I know how difficult this is, and I echo your concern. I wish the state was giving us a little bit more direction than they are, but they're not. So it's, I appreciate that, and I think we all do, that we can, as soon as we can get this information out to parents, probably the better.
Right. I would say, though, that given the logistical feat that Erin Short and her team pulled off for our graduation, I think if they can pull off something like that, to have over 400 kids all get their right diplomas in a parade within a 2-hour time frame that required all of that kind of integration, I think if we can do that, we can do anything. I have real confidence in our administrative team and our staff. I have confidence in Debbie's leadership and to really come together and pull off a plan that, while probably will not please everybody, will be the safest possible course of action that we can have for our students.
Speaking of the parade, I just kind of wanted to mention that not only was it amazing, and Ms. Short and her team worked with help from many other people, by the way, I might add. There were many staff members, but one of the things that I really noticed and I've heard about is that the kids were really excited. They were looking at teachers that are here. They were really excited about seeing their first grade teacher, or their it really was, when our teachers were there to help cheer the kids on and be part of the parade, it really meant a lot to kids and families, I know, to see those teachers there. So I hope that we can convey that to our staff as well, that it was appreciated that they made the effort to be there that night.
You took the words out of my mouth because it was unbelievable. I never,
It
you
was
know,
great night.
you've not done this before, so you think in your mind, I hope this comes off. Couldn't be more pleased, and just seeing the families. And one thing I noticed with the kids, I've never seen so many kids that have so many signs of thanking the Solon school system for their education. And the nice thing about this was having to see families, including their dog. You know, in
Everybody
the
had
cars.
everybody. It was
It
a
was
lot of
just everybody was having a good time. Everybody cared to get this off, and it was unbelievable. In fact, I've had some requests if we could ever get this together again. It was great.
Well, you may want to check on that.
Well, I'm just saying, I think they were so impressed. Even the kids that watched it and then heard about it afterwards, they want to be part of that.
It was
great.
very well done. I mean, I'm blown away still at the logistics that were involved in getting that all together. It was something. Are there any other questions, comments? Mr. Bolden, anything additionally?
I do not.
Board members, are there any other comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for the board to move into executive session for the purpose of, 1, the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of public employees or related individuals, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual. Such person requests a public hearing. And item number 3, conferences with an attorney concerning disputes involving pending or imminent court action.
Move.
Moved by Ms. Thomas. Second by Ms. Jones. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Glavin?
Yes. I did want to mention, too, for our audience, that we will not be not conducting any business at this meeting, and we will also come back to this meeting to adjourn when we're finished. At this time, then we will move into executive session. The board is currently returning from executive session. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Ms. Jones. Mr. Pacano, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clapp?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.